Hey everyone, it's Natasha. Thanks for joining me today. So in today's video, I wanted to show you something really important about how Matthew C teaches multiplication specifically compared to the way most of us probably learn multiplication. And the reason I'm telling you this is because it's my personal opinion and experience that to go back and forth between Matthew C and other programs actually can be pretty problematic because of this. So I'm not saying that Matthew C isn't a good program, and I'm not saying that other programs aren't good programs. I'm just saying flip-flopping between programs can be difficult. So let me show you how it's done. So let's take a multiplication problem such as 24 times 68. Okay, I'm just making this up here. So 24 times 68. And then I'm going to put us. That's probably how most of us learned multiplication, and then Matthew C. So if you're like me, you learned multiplication going 8 times 4 is 32. We put the 2 down, we bring the 3 up for 32. And then 8 times 2 is 16. Add the 3, that's 19. That goes here. I'm going to cross that out to know that I already used it. Then I'm going to come down to the next line. I'm going to put a 0 as a placeholder. Some of you don't put a 0 because you don't need the placeholder. My husband doesn't put the 0, but nevertheless, you don't put anything there. Then we go over here and we go 6 times 4 is 24. So we write the 4 down here, the 2 up here. Then 6 times 2 is 12 plus 2 is 14. So I'm going to write 14. Then we add, and then we get 1,632 as our answer. Okay, simple enough. I think most of us have learned to do it this way. There's also the lattice method. I don't even know that one. So I know one of my daughters learned that in school, my oldest, who is now an adult. But I don't know the lattice method. I'm not going to get into that one. It's kind of irrelevant for this. But anyway, so with the Matthew C, it uses place value in order to teach multiplication. So we start off the exact same way as far as starting off on the right with our 8 times 4. Okay, 8 times 4 is 32. We just talked about that. Instead of putting the 3 up here and the 2 down here, we're going to just write 32. 8 times 4 is 32. The next step would be 8 times not 2, but 20, because this 2 actually stands for 20. This 2 is in the tens place, so 2 tens is 20. So that problem is essentially 8 times 20. So then we know that 8 times 20 is 160. So I'm going to write 160 down here like this. Okay? Notice I didn't write, any placeholders. I'm just simply doing the actual multiplication with place value. Okay, then we're going to come over here. This is not 6 times 4. This is 60 times 4, right? Because this stands for 6 tens. So this is 60 times 4. So 60 times 4, and of course they teach the trick. It's 6 times 4 is 24. Add the 0, so 240. Okay, and then the last one is 60 times 20, because again, the 6 is in the tens place, the 2 is in the 10 place. So that's 60 times 20. So how many zeros are there going to be? There's going to be 2 zeros, right? And we know that's 1,200. Okay, 60 times 20 is the same thing as 6 times 2, which is 12. Add the 2 zeros. That's the little trick they do. That's also kind of irrelevant to this. But nevertheless, we see they've written, again, 8 times 4, 32. 8 times 20, 160. 60 times 4, 240. 60 times 20, 1,200. Then we add those all together, and we get 1,632. So here's what can happen. If you don't do gamma with Matthew C, then you could be confused later on saying delta, because in delta, which we've also done, when it does review of multiplication, it does it this way. Okay, so of course you could have your child do it a different way, but this is how they're going to show you. Okay, or if you say don't come into Matthew C until, let me rephrase that. Let's say you do Gamma with Matthew C, and then you switch to another curriculum. And every other curriculum that I personally know about, it teaches multiplication this way. So the problem is that your child can get very, very confused. Now, the idea is, and I guess I'll tell you my thoughts. I love the idea of this because I think it truly shows an understanding of place value. If the kid understands place value, they're going to have no problem with this. Okay? No problem. Because they're going to understand what they're actually doing. It also makes mental math of large multiplication problems much easier if you can keep that all straight in your head, right? So I totally love the idea of this Matthew C. But this is the way everybody's learned it. I mean, and again, everybody, I don't mean actually everybody, because I know that's not true. So I'm not making inaccurate statements. And but nevertheless, we have the Matthew C way, which totally makes sense to my brain. I actually think this is kind of brilliant. And I never heard of it till we did Matthew C. I can't believe I'm a teacher and I've never heard of this until Matthew C. Okay? Which just is mind-boggling in and of itself, but nevertheless, and everybody else does this. So I think it's just the switching back and forth that you have to be careful about. So if you want to go with Matthew C, stick with Matthew C. Now, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. The reason we didn't personally stick with Matthew C is basically because in third grade or in second grade, my daughter did Gamma. In third grade, my daughter, no. What am I talking about? In third grade, she did Gamma. Fourth grade, she did Delta. I think so, if I'm remembering that correctly. I don't know. Nevertheless, when she took we do the CAT test every year. When she took the CAT test both years, it asked tons of things that she didn't know. So when she had only done Gamma, it didn't ask questions on the CAT test that were like 3,821 times 4,967. And she could do that no problem. But it asked like a division problem, and she never even heard of division. So, and it had fractions, but she'd never heard of fractions. And so I was like, no, this is not good. I was starting to feel like she was behind because the focus, it is a mastery program. I will say I have friends that if you stick Matthew C out, it's going to be such a solid program, but you have to be committed to sticking it out. If you can't be committed to sticking it out, don't do it. Okay? Because if it freaks you out if your kids are, in quotes, behind, don't do it. Because at first, it's going to seem like your kids are behind. But also keep in mind that if you followed their progression, then they have you starting pre-algebra in like 8th grade if you follow their progression. But of course, they don't say grade levels, it's skill levels and yada, yada, yada. But I'm just saying, if you started one in kindergarten and worked your way up, you'd be in pre-algebra in 8th grade. So if you did like the primer in kindergarten, and you know what I mean? So that's perfectly normal. I don't have any experience with the higher level math courses myself, but I have friends who do. Her kids are, really, really smart with math. And it is, I believe with Matthew C, it is truly a matter of sticking it out. Also, if you are panicked about the behind issue, give them some sort of like test prep booklet or something, to kind of make sure that you're covering things. I'm seeing more and more lately of people using Matthew C plus something else. I don't necessarily think that's necessary. I think what's necessary is to stick to it. Okay, so stick to Matthew C if you're going to do it. Otherwise, don't do Matthew C. Okay, does that make sense? Like start and end with Matthew C. Yes. If not, you can. If not, there's most programs you can flip-flop back and forth with, and it is not going to matter. But a Matthew C is just so different in this approach. Now, if your kid can grasp both approaches seamlessly, then maybe it won't matter. But this has been a struggle for us. So I just wanted to explain that. Hopefully that helps, because I think a lot of people do not know. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't know this, because when I tell people, oh, Matthew C teaches multiplication a different way, they're like, what? So just keep that in mind. The multiplication book is that Gamma book. So anyways, again, I'm not saying anything negative about Matthew C or any other programs. I'm just saying that you have to know what you're getting into. And in my opinion, Matthew C is one of those ones you got to stick with, and you will reap the benefits if you stick with Matthew C. I 1 bajillion% believe that. So I hope that was helpful. And if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll catch you in the next one.